Hi everyone, I'm Richard Harrison from Innovator International. It's 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning, which means it's time for this week's Tuesday Morning Coffee Club. I hope you've all had a good start to the week. Firstly, thanks to everyone who joined us last week for our first ever episode where we had Chris talking about intellectual property. I'm going to recap on that one just a little bit because it was such a key session. Of course, what most people refer to as the intellectual property criteria for settlement for indefinite leave to remain is now known as R&D. So the most important thing is not necessarily the protection, but the R&D behind the protection. So if you did miss that session, please go back and watch it again. Episode 1, Intellectual Property and R&D, available on the YouTube channel. But let's move on. Let's get into this week's show. And this week we've got an amazing guest, and it's quite an important thing. A while ago, I was invited to a roundtable session talking about business startups and entrepreneurship and investment. And there was a load of people, and we all introduced ourselves. And the lady before me said something along the lines of, I probably won't do it justice, but something along the lines of, I help international people who want to do business internationally get used to doing business in other countries. I help them get used to the culture, understand how to do business in those countries. And immediately I thought, that's what we do, but the other way around. We help people from other countries come to the UK, and we started speaking, and I found out that this lady's story, her experience was absolutely phenomenal, and we needed to bring that level of expertise into the network, into the Innovator International community. Because for those of you who were at the Shard with us a few weeks ago, and this lady was there, Nick, when he did his small speech, said it's really hard starting a business in the UK for British people. And it is. It is really, really hard starting any business, as we all know. But when you come from another country, you're used to doing business in that country. You've got a knowledge of how things work in that country, how people work, how the culture works. And then you come to a whole new area. It is so significantly different than... There are so many things you need to do to get that working, and we want to be here to give you all the help that we can to do that. Which is why this morning we have, let's see if this button works, Kellie Noon. Kellie, we can see you at the moment, but I just have to slightly adjust the screen because for some reason it's changed a little bit. Kellie, can you introduce yourself briefly while I'm resizing you on the screen, if that's okay?
I can. Morning, Richard. I think you did a really good job of introducing, I suppose, what myself and my business partner Katie do actually. So I'm Kellie. I am originally from the UK, but spent a long time living in Europe, helping businesses there work with the UK as well, but also the US and different areas. And when I came back to the UK, I started helping international business professionals here in Manchester, but that's extended now across the country, to really embed themselves into the UK business working culture. So I do a lot of work both ways. So it really is, like you were saying, Richard, helping people come to the UK and establish themselves. But equally, we do a lot of business with people who want to work abroad, who've never worked in different countries. So it's all those different people skills and learning about culture and how we engage and create things and create communities as well, which is what you're doing as well with
The,
this work.
the great thing for you there, Kellie, is coming from personal experience, hasn't it? 'Cause let me get this right. Did you study in Spain? Is that how it all started for you?
Yeah, it all started. So my original interest, and still one of my interests, I still do this, is languages. So when I was looking at what to study at university a very, very long time ago, I was thinking about obviously how I could combine as many languages as possible. So I ended up choosing to go and study in Spain, but I studied French. So I had a variety of different languages that we were using every day. And of course, you study a second language and a third one as part of your course. So it was kind of an opportunity to learn a lot about language, but also people and experience that being abroad and then studying in different places and seeing how people do that differently.
Fantastic. And so then it became natural for you to understand that other people had problems integrating their teams overseas, or...
Yeah, yeah, because of course, as my experience of being there and studying there shaped the way that I engage with
Mm.
education, the way I engage with people in positions of authority as well, because the way that you engage with people at universities is different, and the way that you respect lecturers or different people that you're engaging with in those settings And from there, I started working in businesses there. So again, the way that I learned to create relationships in a business setting was formed within a culture that's very different to my home
Yeah.
culture. So that's where I first started to see, well, actually, how can we integrate people and support people and help them to understand what they need to do, what's the right thing to do in each situation. So yeah, it was just natural experience, kind of learning and growing, and that's how it started.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. And so the big question for me: do overseas people coming to the UK encounter similar problems to people in the UK going overseas, or is it a completely different set of challenges that we all tend to meet?
No, I mean it's the same. Essentially, it's the same problems, isn't it? Because everything
Mm,
is, how do we engage with people? So, how do we, in a place that we're not accustomed to spending time in, engage with people in the way that's considered correct or appropriate locally? And of course, that will happen to me going over to China, for example, or somebody from China coming to the UK. So, as a general rule, yes, everyone has the same problems. But obviously, as you go through life and the different experiences that you have, some people can become more comfortable with it and have more skills that they've accumulated over time or learnt about than others, just depending on what they've chosen to be interested in and where they've worked and where they've studied and everything else.
and do you find as well? I mean, one thing I've learned so much about business in the last decade, and more than learning about business, learning about people. And I'm not talking international here. I'm talking about how British people do business. And if you take LinkedIn, for example, and we follow some excellent sales teams and sales people as well. And so often someone will say, pick up the phone, make a call. And other times people will say, don't pick up the phone and make a call. And other
Yeah.
times we'll say, send someone a direct message. And I get loads of direct messages that say, hi, how are you doing? And me personally, a salesperson will say that's a great approach because it's a way to get to know someone, you get the conversation going. But we're so snowed under doing work. For me, I think, cut to the chase. Tell me what you want. I'm not interested in a short conversation until I know you. And in all honesty, in business hours, I need to know that I'm doing things that are relevant to the business. So, does personality come into it as well? In that there is no single business culture in a single country, and it all comes down to the person you're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, because it is everything is, and we've kind of said this already, people, it's the people that you're working with. So the way that you deal with business and want to get things done, of course, is shaped by who you are, but ultimately as well, who you are and your own personality is on
Mm,
another layer shaped or formed by the people around you and the way that they engage with business. And of course, that extends to your local culture. And your local culture might just be, for example, Richard, the northwest of England,
mm,
or it could be all of England, depending on the experiences that you've had and where you've been. But there are tendencies that we see. So that wanting to get business done, wanting things to happen quickly, we see quite a lot more in the West, so in the UK and in the US. But there are parts of the world where you go, oh, wait, before I want to get involved in what the business is, who are you? Can I trust you? Are you somebody I want to invest spending time getting to know and talking to? So it is, of course, the person, but who that person is inevitably shaped by everything around them. It has to be.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I remember in a last job, the team travelled internationally. They were supporting the northwest of England do business throughout the world. They had a trip to China, and I don't know how true or correct this is, but there's a belief in the UK that if you're doing business in China, the relationship always comes first. You build a relationship. There's the old story that you go out, you have food, you have drinks, and business is done afterwards. Um, and they went to the family. They went for a family dinner, and unfortunately, one of the British team were quite stubborn in their ways, and they said, "Yeah, I don't like other people's food. I like British food. I'm used to it. It's what I want, please." So the very hospitable family in China brought them a plate of what they love, fried eggs with chopsticks, to eat it, which I thought showed a brilliant sense of humour. It showed a willingness to,
Help,
to
finding that.
help, but also a bit of sense of humour, saying, try a bit of our
Good
culture as
luck.
well.
Yeah, good luck with that.
So yeah, and again, the knife and fork came out later, but so I guess so much comes on the culture, the people, and I mean, how do you start? This question, I don't even know if we'll get to the answer of it. But if
Okay.
you're wanting, no, let me take a step back. I was gonna ask the question: does this ultimately come down to sales? But I suppose sales comes down to relationships anyway. So if you're just coming across to the UK and you've
Yeah.
developed a product or a process or a service or whatever, and you want to sell it into UK businesses, I think I'm sort of answering my own question here, really, because I suppose it comes to understanding the type of business that you want to sell into and then making those right relationships. But where does what you do really help with someone who's just wanting to sell into business and doesn't know the British business culture?
So a lot of what we can do to kind of help guide people is really to help them think, okay, so what would your natural response be in that situation? How might you put together, you mentioned, for
Mm,
example, before a message, what type of message might you put together? What feels natural and comfortable for you? And then adapting that or looking at, well, actually, what might feel more traditionally comfortable to people here in the UK? So we find lots of people
yeah,
who are extremely polite and want to be really lovely, but some of the messages that we get can sound almost false because it isn't natural in the UK to be overly, overly, overly polite in a message. Good morning, sir. If you receive something that said that, you go, ooh, doesn't sound natural here for us. So it's helping people just understand some of those small
yeah,
nuances around actually, how can we just tweak in a small way some of what you're doing to make it feel a little bit more comfortable so that actually you can push forward with that sales process and create that relationship with the right person because it's always really small things that we don't think about or we forget to think about. So it's, I suppose, helping people think about the messaging and how they're going to do that. And also, as well, applying some of that to when you're out and about. How are you making a
mm,
network? If you're going to events to make a network, because again, that's another really effective route for you to sell through, isn't it? The people that you know that are going to help you create those routes to market or get the right connections. And how do you build the relationships with them? So, what is it that they might want to know about you to build a little bit of trust or just enough trust to actually then say, okay, I will help you with this?
yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
over
You have to excuse the guest here. Sorry, looks like we've got a slight imposter for the show. Looking looking very happy with events. So yeah, the joys of live streaming from home. Um, and I mean, do you tend to find that the majority of your work? Because the other thing, of course, is I can't work if I'm not comfortable with how things are with my family and at home and so on. So, I mean, do you tend to find that most of your work is commercially focused, or is it also to do with how a family settles into an area and how a person socially settles into the UK or another country in an area?
Okay, so it's a little bit different because normally there isn't that much personal support in terms of actually how are you and how are you settling in.
Mm,
Of course, that's always a layer to the work that we're doing. But it's a really interesting time to ask this question, Richard, actually, because predominantly in the past, what we've always done is support businesses to really think about actually how does all of this information maybe adapt to your marketing strategy or your sales strategy as you're going internationally. But recently, we found a lot of companies coming to us and saying, right, we've got a really interesting mixed team of staff. How do we get all those different nationalities to work together and to understand each other and
mm,
to be really productive together? So the focus has shifted more to the person. So, actually, how do we support people? How do we support people here in the UK who are from all around the world to create those connections, to understand each other in what it is that they may be asking for, or the way that they're not asking for things, or because those ways of creating those relationships at work make sure that you're happy and that things really function as a unit. But all of that then does support how you feel at home. So, how
yeah,
do you feel at home?
absolutely.
How are you and your family able to integrate with people in the local community? How are you able to make friends that you need? Because when you settle into a new country, it's really hard, isn't it,
Oh,
to make friends and to know where to go for the food shopping that you want to have or whatever it is that you want to do that you need to find locally. We forget about that, and it's really difficult to do if you just don't know where to start or who to talk to.
this is it. This is it as well. One thing that always makes me laugh here as well is stereotypes as well. And we when me and the family, that sometimes we used to go to Florida, and there's a place in Florida called Old Town, and in Old Town there's that place you get everywhere, the British shop, and it's always got you go. And it's always got um, tomato sauce, HP sauce, super noodles, Marmite, chocolate fingers, and you go to another country, and what do? You buy the chocolate fingers because, you can get these in the UK. But yeah, I mean, and it makes me wonder if those stereotypes exist in the UK. Although you get some great Polish supermarkets, Chinese supermarkets, Caribbean supermarkets now. And I get the feeling that over the last 10, 20 years, the UK itself has become so multicultural. I mean, even supermarkets now, you go in, and if you go down a certain aisle, there's not just the British-made foreign food. There's genuine food from other countries to help people settle and feel at home and so on. But no,
Yeah, and no, go on.
I was going to say, in terms of the British shop overseas, um, do we find those stereotypes over here as well? They say, for example, curry. A lot of the curries that British people eat are British curries. They're not curries that you'd find in India.
Designed for the British
So,
palate. Yeah.
so well, exactly, absolutely. Or it may be something that someone has created as a fusion of British and Indian culture to try and meet the needs of people in Britain who want to eat curries. I mean, do you tend to find that business changes? Could someone who comes from another country get a genuine experience of their own country in the UK, or is there a lot of adaptation that has to take place to settle?
So could they have the same experience that they might have at home if they find the right community here in
Yeah,
England?
yeah,
Definitely, because it's what you create, isn't it? If you
absolutely.
find people to replicate what you want to have at home, you can do that. But there's always going to be a little bit of a difference. And actually,
That's a good
people want,
thing.
yeah, and people want to learn about different places that they're living. So they might, find a community of people from the same area that they're in because you need home comforts. You need to have people who've been through that experience, who get who you are, who get your home culture, even things like national holidays. Certain days that we might not celebrate. If you've come over from, for example, Pakistan, you find a
Mm,
community of Pakistani people who are celebrating something that at home is really special
absolutely,
that we're not celebrating. You need that. So finding people
absolutely.
who help you feel the opportunity to continue to do things that are important to you is really special. You've got to do that. Otherwise, it's very difficult to ever fully feel comfortable. You can't forget your own nationality. You can't forget
And you don't want
your
to
own
lose your
way of
identity. Absolutely.
life.
I
And
think to have that fusion of experiences, I think is a great thing. But the other thing that really comes out of that that's quite important is if you do want to retain a feeling of, a sense of belonging of where you've come from as well, then you get community. I mean, business is national, international now. You could probably run your business from any part of the UK, given that a lot, unless it's a shop, obviously. Given that a lot of it's online and a lot of business is online, and you've got great postal services and delivery services and so on. But if you want a feeling of belonging in a community, there are parts of Britain that have their own communities. There's probably very few international communities that you can't find in a certain part of Britain. So it's probably important to research where you want to live if that's something that you actually want.
And lots of people, when they come over to the UK, London is the big place to be, isn't it? It has everything. And yes, London's an amazing city. But where I am up in Manchester, for example, we have such a multicultural community and society. And there's so many different pockets of nationalities and groups and things happening that it's fantastic. And for the size of the city as well, it's really comfortable size to live in. It's not enormous, but yet you can still find everything that you might need to find, and you
Yeah,
can create those relationships with people that you might be looking for. So
uh,
it's finding, like you said, the right place to go and set up and feel comfortable in setting.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there's a couple of things I'd love to talk about, but let's go into the business stuff first, because this is key to people watching. By the way, if you have any questions about adapting to a new culture, adapting to a new country, or some examples or some experiences, please throw them in the chat. We'll involve them in the conversation if we can. But Kelly, quite specifically, we've talked generically about what you do with UK teams wanting to move overseas. How do you deliver that? Is it one-to-one consultancy? Is it training courses? How would you engage with a UK team overseas? But then also, no, let's ask that one first.
So how do we engage with teams that are overseas or teams here?
To
How do we
UK
get?
teams who want to trade overseas, because I'm hoping we have a few people watching this who may be in that position, and then we'll ask the reverse question and say, someone coming to the UK, specifically, how can you help them? Is it training courses? Is it one-to-one support? Let's find out more specifically about how you can help anyone watching this.
Fabulous. Yeah, so what we normally do is we bring people together into a workshop environment. So when we're looking at, for example, the first thing you mentioned, Richard, how do we help people to start working overseas? Well, what we have to do is start with, okay, well, what's our starting point? What skills do we have in the room or in the team? Who are the people that are working on this project? And what information or knowledge or experience do they have? And then we build up from that. So you might have people that already know a little bit about the country that they're going to work in, some people that might speak the language. So it's thinking, okay, well, here we can start with this and we'll bring that information in, because what you want to do is create within that team a feeling of autonomy. So giving them the tools and the skills to be able to go and work effectively themselves. So by starting with, okay, what knowledge do we have? We can then add on or plug in all the different bits of things that we need to know. So, okay, actually, you're going to go out there. Okay, what's the communication method going to be? How do people generally like to be persuaded, for example? When are you going to build respect and trust with that person? Is that going to be later down the line or immediately? What kind of information do you need to prepare? What types of questions might people ask? So we start to think about all these different factors and then create that knowledge pack together and say, okay, this is what we're going to need to use. And when you're doing that, what's really nice is giving people a base to say, okay, this is where I am on a scale of 0 to 10, and this is where the other country lies, and where are those differences, and why are those differences happening as well. So it's workshops really that are they're really good fun.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they're sort of experiential. There's a little bit of role play there, and and it's just a case of how much it comes down to personal confidence. I guess quite a lot.
Confidence in how well you can deliver that work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because you've got to be confident enough to go out there and give it a go. And also, you've got to be strong enough, or resilient enough is probably a better word, to say, okay, well, that's not worked. So what is it that might be the problem? How can we adapt the way we're trying to either sell this or market this or whatever it is you're doing to make it really resonate with that audience using that information that we've got? Because it's not, things are difficult. It's what you said at the beginning. Building a business or doing any part of that is really, really difficult. So it's having that resilience to say, right, we know now that locally people are probably likely to enjoy reading information in this format. Well, let's edit it and see what happens.
Fantastic. So and I guess there's no safer place to actually try out and get the feedback from others and so on. And I get, would it be similar in terms of helping individuals build their own business in the UK? I mean, do you do stuff on a one-to-one basis, or is it purely workshop?
No. The really fun thing about a workshop, and particularly when you've got a team, is that actually it allows for a lot of conversation to happen.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But obviously, you do it with people one-to-one as well. So it's just looking at, okay, where are you? What is it that you want to achieve? And actually, what are those steps that we can take you down to help you get there? So people, and to be honest, Rich, I think with the community of people that you are working with, there's probably less of this than there might be within the general public around the UK, because they're people who are already really thinking about those cultural differences. But one of the things I find when I work one-to-one with people very often is they'll find a challenge or a problem in their business and they just do not understand that culture or cultural differences is what's creating that problem.
Understand. Well, the good thing now, I was going to ask you, some of the things I love about your LinkedIn page as well, we'll put that up at the end for everyone to see, is when you talk about the translation challenges. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, we've got about 5 minutes left and we've got some questions coming in. So do go to Kellie's LinkedIn page. I will put that on at the end. And you see some great examples of where people have translated something into English or another language, and it's just gone horribly wrong. I was gonna hopefully play on some examples there, but the questions are more important. The first question we've got coming in is, what's your take on leading people in a team when you come from a different culture? So for example, how do you keep a local team in the UK equally motivated, even with cultural differences?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things that people miss when they're thinking about leading or managing teams is actually, what do people expect from the manager? So how much instruction do they expect and how much freedom do they expect, if that makes sense? So what type of information do they want that manager to be giving them? Do they want them to tell them exactly what to do in tiny detail? Or do they want them to say, here's a project, deliver it in any way you like, as long as you reach these objectives? And it's working out, actually, the team of people that you're working with, which style is going to be better for them. Because people really do expect different things from managers. And if you don't get that right, that's where you start to have problems because the team then will break up. They don't know who to talk to, they don't know what to do, they don't know what they can ask you. So it's really thinking about, okay, how much detail, how much information are they going to need from me? And when and how much information do I communicate to them? So how often do you have check-ins? How often do you say to them, you can come to me with questions or you can't come to me with questions? So it's establishing those rules almost at the beginning. I think that's the clearest kind of place to start, right? What are the rules? How are we going to engage? Because if everybody knows what to expect, things work smoothly, even if that's not something you've done before. The problems happen when there's no communication about that. So I hope
Yeah.
that helps. Sorry, I'm being really
No,
quick with you.
no, absolutely.
5 minutes. I'm going, oh, blah, blah,
Well,
blah, blah,
the
blah.
good thing is, I mean, you can come in and work with teams as well. But I guess when you have multicultural teams, you might have someone from a certain country, you might have someone who, or people who have always lived in Britain, then you may have some other people from other countries as well. I guess the more cultures you bring in, the more beautifully diverse it is, but then the more potential challenges arise as well, I guess.
Yeah, but the more diverse your group, the more creative you're going to
Absolutely.
be. The better results and solutions they're going to find. But actually, it's just being really clear with them around, okay, what are the expectations of this team? How and when do I want you to work? And what do I expect from you in terms of feedback, results, etc. So being really clear about that. And in the UK, we tend to have a culture where in the workplace where people can ask questions of their bosses or the managers or their leaders. And sometimes it's telling people from different nations that that's allowed and encouraged as
Yeah.
well. And go and talk to people because a lot of people aren't used to that.
Kelly, I'm going to dive into it. Sorry to change the subject very quickly, but we've got some really interesting questions coming through now, and I'd love to try and give these some short fire answers. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes. First one is this is a bit of a longer one.
Okay.
How let me work out how to go through these very quickly first. Okay, so no. Let's go for this one. This is the easier one. How do most British people prefer to build relationships at work? And let me add in the third question at the same time. Is there ever a challenge with either British people or people from other countries
Yeah.
either being too friendly or getting too personal? Where does personal space come into this? Are Brits overly friendly or under friendly?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that, so connecting both those questions really, generally people in the UK like to have a very little period of what we call small talk. So, how are you? Did you travel in well? So, just something that's a little bit more personal, but we don't like that to go on for too long. So, if you've met someone, maybe one question, two questions, how are you? Lovely to meet you. Where have you traveled from today? But then moving that conversation back towards business fairly quickly.
It's true, actually, and I get because someone could
Not
easily
really
say,
dive in.
"Oh, how's your wife?" or "How's your husband?" and that person could think, "Why are you asking about my wife? Why are you asking about my husband?" And it's small talk, but it could easily be taken as a personal statement or a personal comment.
So maybe kind of set yourself a limit. I mean, obviously it varies hugely, but maybe two questions, three questions maximum, and keep them
Yeah,
in general, nothing
and
personal.
I
And
guess please don't be offended if a British person asks you a question that you could perceive to be personal. They are simply showing a level of friendship.
yeah, they are showing friendship, but also something that I find quite interesting. Lots of international people will say, but the British are really fake because they ask these nice questions that are just small talk. They don't really care. They don't care how your family is because they've never
But
met
we're
them. They're
not
just
good at breaking the ice.
And actually, very often, people don't want a detailed response. They just want you to say, yes, great, thank you. Okay. So it's just, yeah, it's what you said, Rich. It's breaking the ice. It's not actually a question that people really want the answer to. They're just trying to kind of get the
Yeah,
conversation. And then you touched on personal space as well. So something that I find a lot with people, I've spent a lot of time, like I said, in Europe, when you're standing next to people talking, you can see them physically moving away because lots of people like to kind of shake your hand, hold your arm, maybe two kisses, depending on where you're from. And British people really do like a bit of space. So again, don't be offended if people start to kind of step backwards. It happens to me even, and I am British. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And again, I mean, interesting one just to finish on now. We're really short of time, unfortunately. So I'm going to make because I think it's an important question. And the question, I'll read the question as it was written. And I think it's a sort of an element of discomfort to it because you'd think that it would be seamless and beautiful and there'd be no challenges. But the question is, how do most British people expect a foreigner or someone from another country to behave at work? And I think, you've always got to respect culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it's what people would expect and what people would like. I think very often, unfortunately, I find a lot of businesses expect international staff or international business people coming in to be quite quiet. And they expect them to not be as confident, maybe, as the other people in the team or the other people in that meeting.
Mm.
But I think what people really like to see is that confidence, particularly when you've not got English as a first language. So, particularly for those people who are coming in, talking a second language, if you can build that confidence and smile and shake hands and jump into a conversation and not worry about the small things and have I made a mistake with that grammar point or a mistake with that language thing, but just getting involved and showing
Yeah.
them that I'm here and it doesn't matter if it's
And
not perfect.
you would always hope that the most British people would be extremely welcoming to anyone, regardless of their country, of their colour, of their creed, of their gender, and so on. I think any new person coming into a new business has to settle and get used to the business, and the business has to get used to them. But I think in Britain that we would certainly be of a day and an age now where it would their nationality would be irrespective.
And also, people and companies really value all of the skill set, all of the knowledge, all of the experience that international people bring to the business scenario or situation in the UK. And they're really, really happy to have international people as part of their teams or part of their project or whatever it might be. So, again, remembering that and remembering the value that you do bring is really, really important for them. So, when you're feeling uncomfortable and you're not sure what to do or you're feeling shy, or remember how important it is that you are there and actually all of the stuff that you bring that they really need as well, because that can help with that confidence.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I've destroyed the British culture of staying on time already. BBC and ITV would never allow this, nor Glastonbury. So, Kelly, we've just got one final point that I'd love to finish on as well. Comments coming from Steve that says, as Kelly says, communication is absolutely key in setting expectations for office circumstances. Working in diverse companies can be a real business positive as well, but it can also add to managerial challenges. Kelly, thank you so much for your time. What I'm going to do straight away is get your LinkedIn details on the page. There we go. That's Kelly Noon's LinkedIn page. Again, I've not put the address there, but if you Google Kelly Noon, Kelly, what is FHEA? It's not fear, I guess.
No, it's not fear. It is. I'm a fellow of the Higher Education Academy, so it's just a
Thank you.
training qualification for the work I do at universities.
Thank you very much. I did wonder, I was going to ask that at the start. So please do get on LinkedIn, connect to Kelly, speak to her about your business, about your challenges.
And send me experiences.
Sorry, Kelly?
Send me your experiences. I
Oh,
love to
there we
hear
go.
stories.
There we go. Connect to Kelly on LinkedIn. Send her your experiences. Ask her questions. Let's get those conversations going. A lot of you will recognise Kelly in three ways. She was at the Shard last month with us. She was at the Shard 2 years ago with us. You weren't at the Barbican, were you? You weren't available for the Barbican. But also, if you watch our business planning course, which is free on our website, then you will recognise Kelly and Kelly's voice because she does the voiceovers for all the video clips. So there's probably many of the talents you have as well, Kelly. Voiceover extraordinaire. But we will finish there. We've run over a few minutes. Thank you to everyone who's watching this live. Thank you to everyone who's watching this on YouTube. Next week we've got a fun one for you as well. Now, those of you who've been with us for a long time may remember the Success GPS courses that you all did. The guy who ran those, Andy Henderson, he's built his business leaps and bounds. He's franchised since. And next week we have Andy Henderson back talking about people over profits. So that'll be the 9th of July, 10 to 10:30, Tuesday Morning Coffee Club. Please do join us. Many thanks to Kelly for joining us today. Many thanks to everyone watching this. And we're all on LinkedIn. We're all live. We've all got active profiles. So please fire in questions, ask away. And once again, many thanks for your time. Have a great day and have a great week.